This program is sponsored by North Valley Church of Christ.
There's a message true and glad for the sinful and the sad. Ring it out, ring it out, ring it out, ring it out. It will give them courage new, it will help them to be true. Ring it out, ring it out, ring it out, ring it out.
All right, good afternoon, folks, and welcome back to another episode of Redeeming the Time. I'm your host, Chris Macy, and I'm the minister here with the North Valley Church of Christ. Well, summer is upon us. I know it's obviously much warmer now. Next week, I think we're supposed to break 110 degrees out there here in Phoenix. So, what do? You know, you got your kids. They're not in school. You want to do things outside, but it's just too hot. Well, summer camps have started up at the Copper Basin Bible Camp just outside of Prescott, Arizona. I was up there last week. I was there Sunday, and the weather is fantastic. Whatever the temperature is in Prescott, it's about 7 to 10 degrees cooler at the camp. That's how awesome it is. And you may be thinking, Chris, we can't afford to send our kids to summer camp. We don't have $1,000 per kid, as most camps charge anywhere from $600 to $1,000 for a week of camp. Well, guess what? Copper Basin Bible Camp, $195 per kid per camp for a whole week. It starts on Sunday afternoon. You got to register there. Registration opens up at 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon, and it goes all the way. You pick them up from camp Friday at 12 noon. How awesome is that? It is a great experience. My kids are actually Cub campers still. That's just a few days. That started in June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And I asked them what was their favorite part of camp, and they said everything. Everything was their favorite part. Right now, it's the June 8th, and it's high school camp. And that started Sunday. It goes to Friday at noon. And I was up there for registration. And I think we ended up signing up like 46 kids, which is low. Every camp's low because of COVID and whatnot. We're not making kids wear masks. If they want to wear a mask, they can, but we don't enforce that. It's not required. Everything's going great up there. And they're having a great time. I'm hearing good things up there. It's just, that's so many more than we anticipated. Usually we have like 80 kids, but with COVID we were expecting around 25, but we got like 46. So fantastic, fantastic news. Next week, starting on the 13th to the 18th, is junior high. 12 to 14-year-olds will be up there. You can still register for that camp. Go online, copperbasinbiblecamp.org. And there's a link there. You can go register your kids and get them in there. We also have a 4th to 6th grade camp. I'm going to be up there the entire week for that. That's from the 20th to the 25th. And guess what? If you still have a high schooler who wants to go, from the 27th to July 2nd, we have what we call Combo Week. That's for junior high and high school. So for like 12-year-old all the way up to 18-year-olds can go to that camp. You can register again online. And if you have any questions or issues, you can email me there. My email address is on the website, chrismacy@outlook.com. I want to get kids out of the city, off their phones, into camp. It's great, and we want to make it as easy as possible for kids. $195 per kid. That's so cheap, super cheap. And we want to encourage you to be able to come and be part of that. Okay, so that's enough of promoting the camp. Let's look at the lesson I want to provide for you today. I gave this sermon Sunday morning. I really enjoyed it. I have found that I enjoy lessons that really apply to me, the most. That's usually the ones I really like. Usually when I don't like a lesson, maybe because it's something that I just didn't connect with, or maybe it wasn't really applicable to me, or I didn't have that struggle, or perhaps. Excuse me a second. Sorry, my throat's still dry, so I'm taking some drinks of water here during this program. It's pretty dry out there. So I did this lesson, and I really enjoyed it. And I had a lot of people come up to me with positive comments, and I always appreciate those. And I try to let them know that, I borrow a lot of things from a lot of great men who I found to have great lessons, and quite a bit of things in this lesson is from what I've learned from others or saw and heard from others. All my illustrations, except for maybe one or two, I've taken from others. And I don't want to sit here and just list all the names. I think I have them in here. Kyle Idleman, he wrote a book, Gods at War. Timothy Keller, Counterfeit Gods. A sermon by John Hamby, and a sermon by Dan Owens. Guy Orbison Jr. up in Durango. Like I always say, I stand on the shoulders of great men. And I try to compile the things and thoughts of their hearts and here. And I look at the Bible. I want to present truth, and I believe this is truth. And so I want to present this lesson today, and it's about jealousy. Is it okay for God to be jealous? Is it okay for God to be jealous? How is it right for God to be jealous, and not right for me to be jealous? So I want us to explore how and why God is jealous for us, and why it is right and good for God to be jealous. I preached last week a lesson on idols. I didn't do a radio program, but you can find it on our YouTube channel. The first lesson on that. I encourage you to go look at that. And God wants to be the one true, only God in our hearts. Only. No one beside Him, no other part of that, Him only, because the one true God must be our only God. And because of that, He is jealous for us. And I want us to explore that means by answering some important questions. And number one is it true that God is a jealous God? If you know anything about the Bible, read it, you know the answer to that. Exodus chapter 20, where we had the listing of the 10 Commandments, verses 4 and the first part of verse 5, it says, "You shall not make for yourself an idol or any likeness of what is in heaven above or on earth beneath or in the water under the earth. You shall not worship them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God." And that's not the only place we read that. Exodus 34, Deuteronomy chapters 4 and 6, Ezekiel 39, Zechariah chapter 1, and many other places. When we think of the characteristics of God, jealousy is not one that immediately comes to our minds, is it? And yet, it is in the Old Testament in these numerous passages. You got the Hebrew word gana. The Hebrew word gana, it means that translated as jealous, used to describe God. And what make the matter even more intriguing is that God not only employs jealousy as a trait, God even takes it on as His name. That's Exodus chapter 34, verse 14, where it says, speaking of God, whose name is jealous, isn't it? Have you ever been in a Bible class where the minister or the teacher is up there, he's got a whiteboard, and he says, okay, let's write down all the attributes or the traits of God. What's the first one? And almost always people say, love, the first one. And then after that love, it's joy and then peace and all these traits. And usually there are always these, in our minds, these positive traits. But how often, or have you ever heard someone saw someone raise their hand and say, oh, a trait of God is jealousy, right? Never. That never happens. But it is. It is a trait of God. And when we're done with this lesson, I think you'll see that that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So what does it mean that God is a jealous God? When the Bible says that God is jealous, is it simply a way for God to use human characteristics to describe Himself? Make us feel good about ourselves when in fact He's not jealous? Or maybe the translators got the word wrong when they translated it as jealous. Well, no. No, that it's right. It is jealous because it literally means, the word gana in the Hebrew literally means to become intensely red, referring to the changing color of the face, right? The rising heat of emotions, which are associated with passion over something that is dear to us. So when the Bible, when we hear the Bible say that God is characterized by jealousy and that His name is jealous, do we have that internal protest that, hey, wait a minute, isn't jealousy sin, right? Because, right, when we look at the word jealousy in the New Testament, in Romans 13:13, Galatians 5:20, it's not listed as a virtue, it's listed as a vice. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4, Paul, when he's listing the characteristics of true love, he says, love is not jealous. Love is not jealous. Now, wait a minute. God is love. 1 John chapter 4, right? God is love. Love is not jealous. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4. But we just looked at passages that says God is jealous and that his name is jealous. Contradiction, right? How do we work that together? Why? And I think that's why we struggle to try to explain this. We all know God's jealous. Maybe we could, but how do we explain that, especially if somebody brings this up? Have you ever had to deal with this question? How can God be jealous if love is not jealous and God is love and God is jealous? That's a contradiction. So how can God be jealous? Great question. And not understanding the answer to that question is one of Oprah Winfrey's points of departure from the Orthodox Christianity. I put it that way. I don't think she was in Christianity, but under the idea of Christianity. She says this. This is a webcast she posted online a few years back. Well, several years back. She says this. I was in my late 20s, and I remember sitting in a church. The minister was preaching about how the Lord thy God was a jealous God, and the Lord thy God could condemn us for whatever. And I remember I had a spiritual aha. And I was in my late 20s, and I suddenly thought, how can this God, who is all-loving and all-powerful, why would God be jealous of me? That's the end of the quote from Oprah Winfrey. So she says she has this aha moment. This was a moment that caused her to turn from that childhood Christian faith to a new age faith in a God of her own making, because she could not believe that a God of love could be a jealous God. When we typically think of jealousy, we tend to think of it as something negative, and certain types of jealousy come to mind. You know, the high school boyfriend upset that the girlfriend made eye contact with another guy, or the basketball player who doesn't pass a teammate who keeps scoring, or a husband not trusting his wife regardless of the years of faithfulness. These are all types of jealousy. And the true object of the jealous person's concerns is themselves. They find themselves lacking in comparison to others, or they cannot tolerate the thought of someone else having something they don't. They become jealous. And that's rooted in envy. Now, envy and jealousy are very different. Jealousy can be good or bad depending on the object of the jealousy, and we'll look at that in a second. Envy, which is a completely different word and emotion, is always bad and wrong. Envy is a feeling of displeasure over the blessings someone else is enjoying. Jealousy makes us want what others are enjoying, but envy makes us want to deprive them of that enjoyment. Godly jealousy is zeal to protect another, or to protect or preserve something precious. True love is never jealous of someone you love, but it is always jealous for the person you love. And a good illustration of this has to do with parenting. This is going to be a little rough, but hear me out. Imagine that you hear a knock at the door, right? And there's a man standing out there, and he appears to be about 50 years old. And he informs you that he and your 14-year-old daughter met in an online chat room, and that he and your 14-year-old daughter have determined that they are madly in love. This is one of the illustrations I stole from another minister. He did a good job with this. So this 50-year-old tells you that he and your daughter have decided to elope to somewhere that permits girls her age to marry without the consent of parents, and that he's there to pick her up. All right, now I bet you right now everyone's in their cars or at home shaking their head, no way. Assume that you're able to restrain yourself long enough to figure out what it is you're feeling inside your heart. And I think what you might find there is that you're suddenly feeling very jealous, very zealous, right, for your daughter. You're not jealous of the man, not at all. But you are jealous for your daughter. Let me repeat that. You're not jealous of the man, but you are jealous for your daughter's safety and jealous for her future happiness. With God's restraining hand guiding you, you would act swiftly and legally. You're not going to kill the guy, right? You're going to remove this stranger from your daughter's life, which is going to be a challenge, right? She's not going to like that. She's going to be angry with you about that. But you know what's best. It's that jealousy that's driving you to do this. So you want to remove the stranger from your daughter's life, and you want to recalibrate her senses of proper relationships and affections. Why would you act this way? Because you love her, because of what you know is best for her. Do you see that? You would not be acting in a way that is at all befitting you in a selfish way. Not at all, because this is going to hurt your relationship with your daughter a little bit. But rather, you're going to be acting and doing what is best for her. It's out of love. Jealousy is a part of that particular moment. When you see that guy standing at the door and hear what he says. Another good illustration has to do with marriage. The prophet Ezekiel used a great analogy to describe what idolatry feels like to God. Ezekiel 23, verse 37, God says, "For they," speaking of Israel, "have committed adultery, and blood is on their hands. Thus they have committed adultery with their idols, and even..." We'll end it there. And he's jealous of them. Not of them. He's jealous for them. God's jealous for them. He's not jealous of those gods. They're not even real gods. He's not jealous of that. He's jealous for the people. The pain of having an unfaithful partner has got to be one of the most agonizing human experiences. It's the ultimate betrayal, right? So in a marriage, a wife has the right to expect faithfulness by her husband. So she'd be well within her rights to be jealous for her husband if her husband was unfaithful with another woman, because their marriage vows made that relationship exclusive of all others. But how would she feel if she found out the other woman was not even a real living woman at all, but it was a department store mannequin? See, that's what Israel did to God. That's what we do to God when we put our idols on the throne of our heart. And it doesn't have to be a stone or a piece of wood. It can be our careers. It can be our children. It can be a lot of good things. That's from my last lesson. It can be a lot of good things that we've taken too far and replaced God with them. And they're not even real gods. They're fake. God's not jealous of those things. He's jealous for you and me. So jealousy of God is a reflection of his love. And we can also conclude that the jealousy of God is a protection for us. God's jealousy, based on his love for us, will cause him to protect us from other suitors. God knows these other suitors, the other suitors are out there striving for our hearts. They're not real suitors. They're only thieves and murderers. Satan comes only to kill and destroy. They do not have the best interest in our heart, for our heart. God won't just, let us run off with other lovers. He will relentlessly chase after us. The one true God will not give up without a fight. And that's fantastic. That's what we want. God's love is more jealous and more zealous than our stubborn resistance. And we ought to be very, very thankful for that. So with all that in mind, how should we respond to God's jealousy? And in answering this question, that's important. That's important. How should we respond to the fact that God's calling is exclusive and that he is jealous for us? Because God loves us so much, and his love has a protective zealousness and jealousy, we should devote ourselves wholeheartedly to God and serve him and him only. Remember when Joshua took over the leadership of the Israelites from Moses, and he led them through the conquest of the Promised Land, and when he was 110 years old and knew he didn't have much time left on this earth, he gave the people of God a final challenge. He says there in Joshua 24:14-15, "Now therefore fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. If it is disagreeable in your sight to serve the Lord, choose for yourselves today whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served, which are beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And how did the people respond? Man, far be it from us that we should forsake the Lord and serve other gods. In other words, we're not going to do it. We also will serve the Lord, for he is our God, they say at the end of verse 18. That's the kind of statement you want to hear. That's what you're like, yes, that's what I want that. But Joshua doesn't let it go. Verses 19 and 20, he responds back to them after they said, hey, we're going to serve the Lord also. He's our God. We're not going to serve these other gods. He says to them, you will not be able to serve the Lord, for he is a holy God. He is a jealous God. He will not forgive your transgression or your sins. If you forsake the Lord and serve foreign gods, then he will turn and do you harm and consume you after he has done good to you. And I don't think he's saying that, giving a prophecy that they're not going to be able to stick with it. I think it's a warning. You better do it, because if you don't, because you're unable, because we will never be able to fully serve him. But if you keep practicing sin, you're falling away. We know that this generation that Joshua was talking to, they will serve the Lord. The next generation will not. And we know what happens though. That's the book of Judges. So like Joshua and God's people in his time, will we take a stand for the Lord and make a commitment to serve him only? I want to end with an interesting story about Michael Jordan, the legendary basketball player. This is a true story. You can look it up. It's all over the place out there. Michael Jordan made a visit to the home of Fred Whitfield. Fred Whitfield was a friend of his and the president and chief operating officer of another NBA team. The two of them were going to go out for dinner. Michael Jordan said to Whitfield, man, it's kind of cold outside. Can I borrow one of your jackets? He says, sure. And he pointed Jordan down to his closet. So Jordan disappeared down the hallway, returned with an armful of branded athletic jackets, shirts, shoes, and other gear, and he dumped the pile on the floor and disappeared down the hallway again. Whitfield looked at the heap and noted that all the items were made by Puma, the rival of Nike, which was the company that Jordan represented. Now, I'm not a fan of Nike, but I like this story. So Jordan had noted that the Nike stuff he had given to Whitfield was in the closet, but so were a lot of other stuff with the Puma branding on it. So the Puma stuff had come as a result of Whitfield's other close friend, Ralph Sampson, an ex-player who promoted the Puma brand. And Whitfield stood there silently while he waited to see the fate of his Puma gear. Michael Jordan returned. He had a butcher's knife, and he came from the kitchen, and he began to cut up the pile of Puma gear into pieces. And when he was done, he said this to Whitfield: call my Nike representative tomorrow. Tell him to replace all this. But don't ever let me see you again in anything other than Nike. You can't ride the fence with me. Now, his behavior, Jordan's behavior, that's a little uncomfortable, right, to hear about. I can't imagine myself doing that. But think of that Jordan's offering us here is a pretty good picture of idol smashing. He was demonstrating an exclusive commitment to a single entity. That's the kind of commitment God longs for us. He doesn't want us to just make room in our closet for him. He wants the closet exclusively for himself. So put on your imagine cap. You wake up in the morning. We know how our mornings go. We have a routine, and we always go into our closet to get our clothes, right? Well, walk into your spiritual closet. Walk into that spiritual closet, and what clothes do you see in there? What's the brand name? Is it Jesus, or is it something else? Well, let's say for all of us out there, it's all Jesus branded, right? All our clothes, we put on Christ every morning. And that's what we want. That's what we want to hear. But let's say there's just one jacket. It's over there off to the side, and it's not branded Jesus. It's branded something else. It's branded alcohol. It's branded career or job promotion or kids sports, or it's branded something else. But we don't put it on often, right? I only put it on once a year. I only put it on every 2 or 3 or 4, even every 5 years, maybe one time. What's the big deal? Does it sound like a big deal? You only put that on once every 5 years. And we already know the answer. Oh, no, we don't need to be doing that. But I want to make sure we fully understand what it means when we put that other branded clothing on. Let's go back to our parent illustration. You got that 50-year-old madly in love with your 14-year-old daughter. I mean, I know no way we'd ever let that guy. But let's say you're going to let him go on a date just once a year. Once every 5 years, you're going to let your 14-year-old daughter go out on a date by herself with a 50-year-old man. Would you do that? That's how God feels every time we put on those other clothes. Every time. Think about that. Should we be doing that? Is it a big deal? No, it's not a big. It's not just not a big. It's not just a big deal. It's hugely wrong. It's so wrong in so many ways, on so many levels. We should not be doing it. It's that bad. And so, when you get up in the morning, put on Christ. If you find other brands in there, pull them out and tear them up. There's no room for it. None. There is no second, third, fourth place. We are God's and His exclusively. And I pray that all of us will give God what He rightly deserves, our wholehearted devotion. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, and I hope you will too. Let us redeem the time. Make the most of every opportunity. Thank you. And I pray that the Lord blesses you this day.
Ring it out, ring it out, ring it out.
This program was sponsored by North Valley Church of Christ. To hear this program again, go to FamilyValuesRadio1010.com and click on the podcast page and find this program and many others right there on FamilyValuesRadio1010.com.